to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is the spiral of change. Oftentimes we're engaged in personal growth and it seems like the same issues keep coming back again and again. And it's easy to imagine that we're not making any progress when in fact we're engaged in this spiral of change. So we're going to talk about that. Before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop. And allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables us to experience life. Welcome, 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 and good morning. Good morning, Rosalind. So good to have you here with us this morning. And good morning to everyone else who's joining us. So I think that so many of us on a path of growth, evolution, awakening, whatever you want to call it, experience from time to time the frustration of old issues resurfacing, things that we'd worked on forever and that we thought we got complete with, and then they come back. And I want to introduce a principle that I live by, and it's a practice also, which is if it's coming up to heal. And it's not that our work has been in vain on certain issues, it's that our capacity to address them deepens and deepens over time. And we can eventually disappear these issues, dissolve them. But it's interesting to note that this spiral of change, in my experience anyway, is a deepening of awareness, a deepening of the ability to address something and to look at ourselves in an even deeper way. This is coming up, as most of our conversations, from a personal experience, and just noticing that these thematic issues, let's say, or themes of our lives can resurface. And so I've discovered most recently some old patterns, beliefs, emotions have resurfaced, giving me yet another opportunity to address these things that have been thematic really through my life. And what I recognize is that each time they come back around, there is an opportunity to go deeper and to be cleaning out the cobwebs in the corners. So if we take it as a cleaning metaphor. We can say the first round, we're getting the surface dust off things, and progressively we're cleaning more deeply. And as we evolve more and more, then we're going into the very nooks and crannies and the corners. Shosha, welcome. Happy New Year. Thank you so much for being here. Shosha says, good morning. Want to thank you for all you say and wisdom you share. Thank you so much for that. I deeply appreciate that. Thank you. So this, I think when these issues show their faces again after years of working on this stuff. I mean, I've met with clients who just say, I'm so tired of working on this. I've worked on this forever and I just don't want to go back there. And I get it. I get it. And it's dimensions. As we evolve, we hopefully gain capacity and capability to be able to address dimensions of issues that we previously didn't address. And it's not that it gets necessarily less uncomfortable either, by the way. But what we can recognize is that we're in this spiral of change and growth. And each time we revisit something, it's from a different vantage point, it's from a different dimension. And so it's not the same. It looks very similar, and it can be mistaken for being the same. However, we're not the same when we address these things, and therefore what it is we're addressing is not the same. So it's funny how these deep dive sort of experiences seem to be timed for me, because the way I operate my practice is I have 3 months on with clients and then 1 month off, and then 3 months on, 1 month off. And the last time I went into this kind of inquiry with this kind of depth was the last time I was on break, which was September. Yeah, so here we are again. And I'm aware of all these things coming back up, these feelings that I haven't felt in quite some time, coming back up saying, hello, there's still something here to work with. And I do receive these things now as opportunity. And I think that that's such an important framework. It's been a lifesaver, godsend sort of framework for me. And I invite you to give it a run on for yourselves, that if it's coming up to heal. And I can observe myself in the experience of it rather than getting swept away in the experience of it. So we get to engage with our growth in a conscious way rather than falling into the vortex of that spiral, right? So we have the opportunity to say, okay, so what's going on with this at this point? And what can I allow myself to see? What can I see that I hadn't seen before? What are the beliefs that are allowing me to feel these feelings or that are generating these feelings? And how can I look at those beliefs differently? How can I challenge those beliefs? because oftentimes our beliefs go unchallenged, right? We just say, well, that's the way it is. I am this way, that way, or the other way. And when we look at our beliefs, when we have a willingness to say, okay, well, what is the dynamic of that belief? And is it mine? Is it actually my belief? Like, do I actually believe that? Or is it a programmed system? Is it a remnant of something that I've inherited or adopted from elsewhere? Is it mine? And if it is, even if it is mine, do I still believe it? Do I really believe it? And what we believe we make real. So then we can say, do I choose to believe it? And what would it take for me to not believe it? To go start looking for different evidence, because we tend to validate the things that we believe. Good morning, Rukmini. Welcome. So good to have you joining us this morning. We're talking about the spiral of change and the power of belief. Belief, it's not truth. This is just really important to understand. Belief is belief. And what I mean by that is it's not truth. It's a context. It's a framework through which we engage with life. It is not immutable. We've all changed our beliefs over time as we have evolved and experienced more of life. Now, we may have incorporated beliefs that are not necessarily beneficial to us, and we get to, oh, Rukmini, I don't read futures, sorry. I talk about what it is to be human and the things that we encounter. So maybe you'll find some benefit in joining us for that. So when we can recognize, like, hold beliefs sort of as hypotheses rather than absolute truths, if we can hold our beliefs with open hand, we have a greater capacity then to engage with life in a dynamic way, to actually be able to grow, to open ourselves to learning and possibility, and to recognize that these beliefs, again, it always goes back to the narrative that we have, the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves, each other, and the world. And those stories, the beliefs, change over time when we have additional experience and additional information. I want to go back to this notion of the spiral of change, because I can say that people, myself included in the past, people that I've worked with and that I know, often experience a tremendous frustration and sometimes even hopelessness when the same issues arise. But maybe these issues are our incentives and measures for growth. Maybe these persistent themes allow us to recognize our growth and also to deepen our experience. So for me, and there have been a lot of themes, and thankfully most of them are not active currently, but themes of abandonment, betrayal, unlovability, I'm sure that these probably ring bells for a lot of folks. And there are moments that we experience that can trigger what remains of these things on different levels. And if we can bring curiosity into the equation rather than frustration, right? The frustration, oh my gosh, it's still here. I can't believe that this is, I'm still contending with that. Rather than that, because I've been there too, we can take ourselves to a place of curiosity to say, isn't this interesting that this is showing up at this time? What's going on? What triggered that? Where is that response coming from? What's different now? And what opportunity is there here? How can I dissolve this further? How can I heal this further? Life becomes much more interesting when we can bring curiosity to it. Less oppressive, more engaging, more filled with wonder when we can engage curiosity. So if we have these themes, ultimately what it's teaching, thank you, Shosha says themes, not facts. It's helpful to ease the navigation on the spiral of change. Exactly. It's not that I am unlovable, for example. And I know that a lot of us have that, even if we can't admit it, even if it's hard to admit that it's a theme and it doesn't need to define us. This is a really important thing, is we tend to take on beliefs and these themes as truths, like this I am in my beingness, in my expression in the world, who I am is unlovable. Well, if that's our experience, if we're experiencing ourselves as unlovable, then we're projecting that into the world in such a way that we will receive validation of that. When we take on those identities, we will receive validation because we're putting it out to the universe to say, okay, here's the invitation to treat me as unlovable, right? Because that's what I believe. And therefore, what happens is we sort out and dismiss anything that contradicts that unlovability. And what we perceive is anything that validates that belief. When we start getting curious and we stop identifying with these beliefs, when we can hold them in open hand, not as facts, as you say, but as themes, then we can provide ourselves an inroad. Then we can sort of extract ourselves from that dynamic, the dynamic of that identity. And we can say, oh, isn't that interesting? First of all, what if that's not true? That's a good place to start. What if that's just something that I was conditioned to in whatever way? And what if I can recognize my evolution by touching against that, how I relate to that experience? Now, this is another thing that's really important on the spiral of change. It doesn't mean that the emotions become less intense. In fact, sometimes they're deeper. It's like the getting closer and closer to the initial wounding, and to allow those emotions, which is energy in motion. Emotions are stored energy. If we can allow those emotions to release without making additional meaning, without validating the truth of whatever that underlying assumption was, if we can just allow the emotions to be energy that we're moving with tears, crying, ugly crying, whatever it is, if we can allow ourselves to release that emotion, what happens is the experience dissipates, the deeply, deeply ingrained felt belief starts to dissipate and dissolve. And that's why this spiral of change, it allows us to have, as we're evolving more, we have a greater resilience, a greater capacity, hopefully, to recognize and allow for the experience without getting sucked into the vortex of that identity. And so when it's coming up, it's saying, hey, there's still more here. And you're up for it, or else it wouldn't show up. Doesn't mean it's not uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. In September, oh my gosh, the stuff I went through in September for like a week and a half of intense discomfort, clearing a lot of this stuff. Deep emotion that I guess previously I hadn't had the resilience to address or to be present to. So bringing curiosity to it, recognizing that it's a spiral of change. It's not the same thing. It may be the same theme, but it's not the same thing. And to be gracious with ourselves as we move through these evolutions. It's not a linear process. Usually it's not, okay, once and done, get to leave that behind forever. Sometimes that happens. And eventually that does happen. Eventually, we really truly do move beyond it. Or there is the capability for us, or the possibility that we actually can truly move beyond it. And in the process, it's a process. So allow for that process. And be gracious with yourself. Curiosity. Cultivate curiosity. So that's it for today. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to please like, follow, and share Enlightened World Network and me. The links are in the description. And as always, I'm tremendously grateful for the opportunity to share these musings with you about being human. And so